Read. Alright, that's on. And I know, what was it? I think 25 minutes for the intro plus the Eagles here. I'll pull that up. And I got the Facebook stream, and it looks like in front of me. That's good. Aloha and hello out there, everybody. What's going on? This is Kevin Mahalik, otherwise known as Miho, and thank you for joining me today on this edition of Too Close to Call, your Philly sports talk radio show here at USALA Media or USALA Radio. I know we dabble into a little bit of the national scene, but overall it tends to be Philadelphia focused here. So I appreciate you guys joining me once again. If this is your first time, do me a favor. Pull up your phone, pull out Instagram, check us out on there. If you're not currently watching on Facebook, we are streaming on Facebook Live right now. So if you see me messing with the computer and trying to figure things out, it's one of my first times multitasking here. So trying to figure out how to best situate all the notes, the video, staring at myself in the computer, and not messing up and things along those lines. But pull out your phone, Facebook, Instagram, search Too Close to Call, the number 2 both times, Too Close to Call Cast, as well as USALA Media and USALA Radio. Give us a follow. That way you guys can interact with the show. It's definitely a lot better when that's the case. If you comment on the Facebook or the Instagram, and I'm sure there's going to be a take or two throughout the episode that you're going to have an opinion on and want to discuss further. And I'm certainly open to an open topic segment. If I get a lot of comments or messages, DM me or the show, let me know what you want to talk about. And if your take's good enough, maybe I'll have you call into the show and share with everybody else what your thoughts are, since now we have the capability for some call-in options. That a little bit technical difficulties up and coming, but we have everything ironed out, and now it should be smooth, and we should be able to engage with you guys a little bit more here on Too Close to Call. So once again, I appreciate you tuning in. If you're at work, hopefully the morning's gone okay for you. Nothing too crazy's happened on a Monday or Tuesday yet, as we're getting into the crux of the week here and the nitty gritty. But hopefully I can take your mind away from what's going on for the next 55 minutes or so as we get into a little bit of sports talk. And if you're not at work and you're at home, post up outside. It's a beautiful day out there. Grab yourself something to drink, pull up the computer, and let's have ourselves a good time here over the next 50 minutes. But like I mentioned, this being a Philadelphia-based podcast, we will be discussing mainly the Eagles as well as the Phillies today. We'll sprinkle in some NFL talk and national news at the end, but for the next about 20 minutes or so, we're going to be discussing the second game of the Eagles preseason against the Jacksonville Jaguars, as well as some of the storylines and situations that have come across since, such as the quarterback issues. And that's right where we'll start, because not to bury the lead, as you guys know, if you tuned in last week, I rewatched the game again a second time. I like to break down the film a little bit more that time, watch some particular individuals, and the first time I try to just take in kind of the overall feel and general kind of flow of what's going on in the football game. And the breakdown started very early in this one. It was the first drive for the Eagles, and we have another quarterback injury to talk about. At first glance, once again, this is where you can't jump to conclusions as to who may be at fault, because when you watch the play live, a defensive end or a blitzer came untouched off of Cody Kessler's backside, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, that's the left tackle Dillard's responsibility because he crashes down, ultimately doesn't really block anybody, and then this person comes off the edge free to just light up the quarterback. And that being their blind side, meaning when they're right-handed and they drop back, they're facing the right side of the line and not the left, obviously. So you don't see that guy coming. You technically have to feel him coming. It's one of those things that you can't exactly kind of explain until you're in that moment. You just kind of feel that sense of urgency that something's about to happen. But when it's that quick, you really have no chance. And the announcers, as well as myself, obviously people were riding Dillard for making the mistake there and thus causing the injury to Cody Kessler. And unfortunately, if you listen to Doug after the game, he was actually a little more critical of Cody. You know, obviously he had the injury, thus the concussion protocol that he is still in, or I believe he may be coming out of here in the coming days. But he said Cody actually missed the blitz and the protection. The protection was right. The call was correct because they had a couple of individuals coming up the A-gap, which for those of you out there who don't know what the A-gap is, that's the gap in between the center and guard. So the center is the gentleman who snaps the ball to the quarterback, and then you go A-gap, and as you widen, B, C, and D gap. And obviously responsibility starts inside to out because that's more of a direct line to the quarterback, so you're going to get there much quicker. So everybody kind of crashes down, and thus the people on the outside, they're still going to get there if they're untouched. I mean, a second and a half or a second is no time, but that's a little bit more than somebody right in your face who's a couple feet away from you. So Dillard in the O-line crashed, left the gentleman coming up untouched. Apparently Cody Kessler should have seen that, gotten to his hot read, gotten the ball out quickly. Even if it's an incomplete pass, you just know pre-snap you don't have as many offensive linemen to block the defensive linemen that are coming. So once again, we didn't find this out until days later. People were kind of riding Dillard during game action, but it really seems that it wasn't his fault and it was more on the quarterback. But because it was the second injury in as many weeks, and we touched briefly on last week how there was already chatter that they were going to bring in an additional quarterback to the room, and I kind of talked to you guys about the reasons why I didn't think this would be the case. But obviously now with an additional injury and really only one healthy quarterback who you're willing to play in game situations. I know Carson is healthy, but you're not going to see him in the preseason games with what's been happening, especially behind a second unit offensive line. So if you only have Clayton Thorson, you can't go into a preseason game with just one quarterback. So you had to sign somebody that was at least going to be a camp arm. And the Eagles, I think, actually took it a step further because Josh McCown is not just a camp arm. Here's a guy who, yes, he retired after last season. You know, he had played 17 years in the NFL, and the last couple were with the New York Jets. And if you follow football, you know the Jets the past couple of years haven't been the strongest organization or had the best record there. So as a gentleman in his 17th year, he's probably like, man, I've had enough of this. I'm just getting out of here. I made enough at this point. I'm not trying to go 4-12 or 5-11, whatever it was. So he retires, but obviously the mental side of his football knowledge was strong enough because he secured a job at ESPN. He was going to be on Sunday NFL Countdown or Sunday Night Countdown. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he was going to be an analyst and a personality on ESPN. And if you understand that much about football, and obviously being a career backup quarterback, I guess you could say. Yes, he's had stints where he started, but overall he's definitely seen as a backup option that can come in spurts and not somebody that will win for months on end. But in those short spurts, his knowledge of the game is going to be enough that he'll be able to keep you afloat. And that amount of years and the veteran presence that he has, this being his 18th year, and he wore number 18 or chose number 18 because it's his 18th year. I thought that was pretty cool, not knowing a lot about McCown. I was like, all right, dude, I dig that. That's cool. So, but his knowledge in the room of the game is going to strengthen Nate Sudfeld as well as Clayton Thorson. Because those two individuals are still young and very, very green. I mean, Nate Sudfeld, yes, he's technically been in the league. I think this is his 4th year, but the guy's played in 1 football game and does not have any NFL starts under his belt. He played last year in week 17, or no, it was 2 years ago, excuse me, in week 17 against Dallas when they had everything wrapped up. Now, granted, he looked good and he looked strong in the preseason, but with a team with Super Bowl aspirations, you're not going to, put all your eggs in the basket of a backup quarterback that doesn't have any NFL starts under his belt. So they had to bring in somebody with experience. Thorson being the rookie, obviously he's not the guy. And then with the injuries that occurred, that's where it gets complicated. So on the surface, the move I think is a great move for the team. The tricky part now comes when it comes down to roster cuts in 2 to 3 weeks. And it wasn't going to be that tricky of a conversation. Even last week, this wasn't a conversation, but since game 1, and Clayton Thorson, and this is in the notes as we after we wrap up this talk, we'll continue to run through the game tape, but Clayton Thorson was strong on Thursday. He had a good football game. Now, I literally didn't even want to bring his name up after week 1 based on how bad he was, because I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, being a 4-year starter at Northwestern and, throwing for over, I think it was 6,000 yards in his career. I mean, the guy played college football in big-time environments. So the NFL preseason shouldn't have been anything that overwhelmed him, but yet again, he's human, and it was. So, you take a step back. You also have the injury to Sudfeld, which means Thorson's now getting reps with the 2s all week, and the people he's going to be playing with are 2s and 3s because Kessler. But once you get in there and Kessler gets hurt and he has the entire game to kind of settle down, he actually played a pretty good football game. He had a long, let's see here, I have it in my notes. They led a 12-play, 95-yard touchdown drive that finished off with a 38-yard touchdown pass to Greg Ward Jr. and what was his first NFL touchdown preseason or regular season, but he certainly looked a lot better. And then compounding, staying on the topic of Thorson, this past Tuesday in joint practices with the Ravens, and we'll talk about more storylines there, but Thorson alone, based on some of the statistics that came out from beat writers, and shout out ESP, I believe he's at radio.com, but he tends to take down the quarterback statistics throw by throw, and he had Thorson at 6 for 7 with 3 touchdown passes in red zone drills. So he was the strongest quarterback that the Eagles had during that practice. And if he continues to grow over the course of weeks 3 and 4, he's going to be a tough cut. He's not going to make it through waivers, because the NFL is so starved for cheap developmental quarterbacks that somebody like Clayton Thorson, even though he's a 5th-round pick with very little tape, would not make it through unclaimed through waivers. You're going to lose him, which the Eagles don't want to do. So then the tricky follow-up conversation is, do you think he could be one of those individuals that is key for a phantom injury, quotes in the air, where maybe the last day or 2 of training camp his shoulder starts to hurt and then it doesn't bounce back and he ends up on IR, so they keep his rights and don't have to cut him, but he doesn't count against the 53-man. So that's a little bit of the gray area that the NFL really doesn't like you to talk about. So Roger Goodell, if you're listening, I apologize. No, that definitely doesn't happen at all, but that's how they kind of maneuver the system there. And it's not only at the quarterback position. Donnell Pumphrey 2 years ago was a prime example. I think he had a quote-unquote kind of knee sprain that kept him out the entire year. But if you do that, he can't practice. So he can do all the classroom work, he can learn from McCown, kind of the behind the scenes, but can't get on the field and develop. So I think right now, if he continues to progress over these last 2 weeks, they may keep 4 quarterbacks, which could lead to a number crunch at another position that we hadn't talked about in the past. And honestly, looking through it here, like I said, jumping through the first quarter, Brandon Graham and Malcolm Jenkins both played in game 2, not in game 1. Apparently these were personal decisions by them, and I certainly understand it, because specifically with Brandon Graham, last year he was coming off the surgery post Super Bowl, and he himself even said that it took him 8, 10, 12 weeks, I forget the exact number he said, but it was a couple of months to really feel comfortable in game-like situations and scenarios and really get back in the flow. And you saw that once December hit, because that's when he was playing his best football, and he doesn't want that to be the case this year. So he wanted some game reps and to knock the rust off there. And Malcolm Jenkins, he's a stud. I've seen everything I need to see from him. I know he's going to want to play in Game 3 a little bit, but honestly, dude, you're good. Sit down, go away, listen to Doug, listen to the GM. He was everywhere on the field. Now, granted, it's against the twos on the other team, so take everything in the preseason with a grain of salt. However, very, very strong performance from him, and he certainly did not look to be slowing down here as he's playing for a contract, into his early 30s. But on the offensive side of the ball, Miles Sanders, he was running with the ones, and he looked very good. The running back out of Penn State, the second-round pick, former 5-star recruit out of high school, actually. People don't realize, or they probably do being local to this area, but nationally may not realize that Miles Sanders was actually a higher-ranked recruit coming out of high school than Saquon Barkley. So think about that for a minute. Obviously, those recruiting rankings are an inexact science, but gentlemen, now Saquon was a 4, I believe, and Miles Sanders was a 5, so both high recruits. But Sanders, they get on campus at Happy Valley. Obviously, Saquon goes on to be Saquon and develop the way he did, but Sanders is no scrub, and the fact that he only played 1 year, I think, will ultimately benefit him because he's fresh. I know people like to argue whether they're rusty or they're fresh, and I've gotten into that with with Darren Sproles and the fact that he's played like 10 games in 2 years, and he's either injury prone or he's going to be extremely fresh this year, depending on which side of the fence you like to sit on. And Miles Sanders is the same way. So him getting reps with the RB1s, or the ones that were this game, and then Jordan Howard looking solid as the number 2. So don't be surprised as we move into the regular season if Jordan Howard out touches. I don't know if he's going to have more carries, but total touches based on kick returns, receptions, I think he's going to have more touches than Jordan Howard, and those are going to be your top 2. Now, it will be interesting to see, because out of this joint practice that was happening both today and yesterday, it seems that Corey Clement was back on the field for the first time on 11-on-11s, doing full speed and full contact drills. And he's an individual coming off a knee surgery who's a little bit of a question mark. People are kind of forgetting that 2 years ago he was close to being the Super Bowl MVP with over 100 yards receiving, and then last year was just kind of dinged up all year and really never got it going. But this past offseason had the surgery. The knee is good, looking good. He reported to training camp at the exact weight that the Eagles wanted him to report at. So I had some inside sources tell me that he was due to report at 217 pounds, at 217, and every pound over was a $600 fine. So I know these guys get paid a lot of money, and maybe $600 is not to them what it is to me and you, but to any human out there, 600 bones is 600 bones. So you don't want to come in at 220 and owe 2 G's to the Philadelphia Eagles. I know that much. But he came in right at weight, looks good, looks strong, and I'm excited to see him in Game 3 here really get his first opportunity to kind of show he still has that bounce and that acceleration that we saw to him, and really being our third down back in years past. So the running back position, I'm looking forward to seeing how that shakes out, and obviously we haven't even seen Darren Sproles. So a lot of touches going around for those 4 individuals. I think all 4 are going to get on the field, so don't get caught up out there. Is Sanders the one? Is Howard the one? It doesn't matter who the one is, because 1, 2, 3, and 4 are probably all going to get touches moving forward. It's just a matter of who gets 15, who gets 10, and who's getting 5. But every one of them is going to see the field, and I think Deuce Staley is going to run a nice rotation there when it comes to keeping everybody happy and excited about their role. So 7-3 Phils. 7-3 Eagles as we went to halftime. Not a lot happened there in the second half. Deshaun Hall continued to show up. We touched on him for quite a few minutes in last week's episode, and he continued to play well and have a strong game again. And the gentleman on the other side, Sharif Miller, he had another sack. He's made plays in the first 2 games, and those 2 are grading out extremely well. So when we talked about whether they're going to keep 5 or 6 defensive ends, I believe 6 have played their way onto the roster. And the gentleman who was currently 4th on the depth chart because of his performance at practice and the offseason that he's had, when it comes to game day and actual game film, Josh Sweat is leaving a little bit to be desired here. So Deshaun Hall, who started probably as the 61st, 62nd, ranked player when it came to 1 through 53 on whether or not they were going to make the team, he's all the way up, man. He's in the 50s. That dude's on the team. So unless there's an injury that pops up to himself, he's going to make it, and as well as the other 5 defensive ends. So that battle is kind of playing its way into everybody making the team, just because they've all stood out at different times. So that's a good problem to have on the defensive line. And like I mentioned, if they're going to keep 6 defensive ends and they're going to keep 4 quarterbacks, at least for the time being, Kev, where are they getting these roster spots from? Who's not going to make the team? Where are they going to be shy? And ultimately, I think it's going to be on the offensive line, because if you've been watching these games, Stefan Wisniewski, oh boy, he has been tough to watch, because I don't know if you guys out there know what the yips are, where literally you've been doing something your entire life. Like, he's the center, so he snaps the ball back to the quarterback who's in the shotgun position about 5 yards behind him, and all of a sudden he just can't find the quarterback. The guy's rolling the ball back, he's way off left, way off right, it's over his head, and literally that's your first job, Stefan. Before you block anybody, call anything else out, you got to make sure that the quarterback gets the ball and in a quality catch position. That way he can spin it, and get it out of there very quickly. But he hasn't done that, and it's a curious case, because they re-signed him this offseason after he tested the market and found that there wasn't a lot out there for him. I was surprised, because he was a starter on a Super Bowl championship team. He's played in the past. He's a veteran now, I think 6, 7, 8 years. He's also out of Penn State University. But the yips and the snapping issues seem to be creeping back around for Mr. Wisniewski, and it's putting his position firmly on the bubble, because as I rewatched the film again, gentleman undrafted out of Stanford, I forget his first name, I want to say Brett, but it's probably not, so I apologize, but Mr. Herbig out of Stanford, an undrafted rookie, was in with the twos in front of Stefan Wisniewski, and that's the first sign in somebody who's earning more time and more opportunities and more potential, because if you can't snap the ball and you're strictly a center, you're not much good to us here on this football team, and that's got to be what upper management is thinking. So it truly is interesting and something to look forward to that plays out. But staying with the offensive line, left to right, just kind of bouncing through. Andre Dillard, strong again in preseason game 2. I was diving into some advanced statistics, and the guy has not allowed a hurry yet, a quarterback hurry, which is essentially where the defender gets close to the quarterback. He doesn't hit them, because there are QB hits and QB sacks, and then there are hurries. So it's kind of level 3 of 1, 2, 3 of giving up quarterback, negative stats for offensive linemen. And the guy has 0, 1, 0, 2s, and even 0 hurries. So nothing across the board, which is, again, exactly what you saw on his college film. So the guy's truly planning out, and I know I've had some concerns about Jason Peters and who's going to fill in for him, but Andre Dillard has done enough to shut me up and eliminate my concerns, and I think we're going to be good to go there moving forward. So let's see. Left guard, you got Samalu. Center, Kelsey, obviously. Right guard is the position that's still a little in the air. Not when healthy. Brandon Brooks will obviously be the starter there, but it's just a matter of when. If he'll be ready for week 1. He was just cleared to resume practice activity against the Ravens this week, but I don't think you should rush a 350-pound human coming off an Achilles injury. So I'm not a doctor, once again. I don't know, one of those things, but I'm just using my context clues here and thinking that maybe a little more caution for a larger individual on a very small tendon in the body. So we'll see how the Eagles play that. And his replacement, Big V, as well as potentially Matt Pryor. Those two guys up and down so far. If you watch the game, there are some good spots, a couple of good plays where you call them out doing an excellent job, but overall, a little bit of a struggle inside. So that right guard position is something still to watch here as we move forward the rest of the preseason and see how that offensive line shakes out, because like I mentioned on the numbers, I think they're only going to keep about 9 when there was talk of 10 or 11. Even beforehand, just because that sixth defensive end has outplayed, our third tackle or our second guard. And really, if he can play any sort of special teams, those defensive ends, that'll help their case to make the team too. So the last couple minutes here, 2 minutes or so, wrapping up our Eagles talk, touching on the inner squad with the Ravens. They are live right now, actually. They start at 1:30 today, so we won't be discussing that, obviously. But they did practice yesterday, and there were a few takeaways that the Twittersphere and the beat writers who were privileged enough to watch practice were able to share with us. And one of them was that Ronald Darby was back and he was starting at corner. So we've had discussions around who's going to start when everybody's healthy, and it looks like Darby has answered one of those. And it makes sense when you look at his contract. They paid the guy a pretty good chunk of change, so you don't think he's going to be riding the pine and making $8-9 million. And he's probably our most physically gifted corner when it comes to straight talent. Now, when you look at Pro Football Focus and other grades like that, it can be argued who ultimately is the best corner that we have. But Darby was back with the ones, and that leaves Rasul Douglas and Sidney Jones on the other side. Now, my personal preference when it comes to those two is I would like to see Rasul Douglas because he's a little bit more of a tackler. If Ronald Darby on the one side, he's kind of your speed corner, he doesn't tackle great, kind of shies away from contact, you're going to need at least somebody out there who's willing to stick their nose in, stuff the run from time to time. And Douglas has shown that as he's led the team in tackles multiple games in years past, which isn't great for a corner, but if he's constantly sticking his nose in there, you can't complain. So we'll continue to monitor Sidney Jones. Avonte Maddox moved into the slot when that happened and didn't move there, but I think you're going to get a rotation of all those guys moving forward. So brief notes. Richard Rodgers hurt his foot. Seems like he's going to be out for quite some time into the regular season. That opens up a roster spot, or I guess increases the chances of, what's his name? I want to say Perkins, the tight end wide receiver hybrid, number 83, now has a better opportunity to make the squad moving forward. But we'll see. And like we said, we got the Ravens coming up this Thursday. Carson Wentz not going to play. He did practice against them again, went 15 of 30 for 1 touchdown, so was okay in practice. But the main goal there, once again, is to keep him healthy and have him riding into the regular season feeling good. So that's it here for your Birds Talk as we wrap up the first segment here on USALA Media and USALA Radio. I appreciate you guys listening once again. We're excited for the Eagles game coming up this Thursday. As the third game, the starters or backups will play most of the action, so it'll be a little bit more entertaining than some of these games weeks 1 and 2 where the fourth quarter really is tough to watch. Even for me, who's a sports guy and does it so he can bring it to you, it was tough. But thanks for sticking with me here. We'll take a brief break and we'll come back on the other side of this, talking Phils, talking baseball. Today 1:30. Let's see, 1:45, and then we'll do 15 and 15. I may run like a minute short at the end, but I'll figure out something to say. So we'll be good. 15. Cubs, 5 minutes. Hoskins, Gambler, cool. That'll work. Welcome back, everybody, to Too Close to Call, the sports talk radio show here at USALA Media and USALA Radio. I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you stuck around after the first segment, we dove into the Philadelphia Eagles there, talked about the quarterback battle and other roster positions that are going to fill out as we continue through the preseason. But here in this second segment, we're talking baseball. We're talking Philadelphia Phillies, and we are discussing the most frustrating team in Philadelphia sports right now. The Philadelphia Phillies just refuse to go on a run of any sort. And they did everything they possibly could. They mixed all the ingredients together of a great recipe to go on a run. They got rid of the hitting coach, which we discussed in length last week, and that ultimately led to a brief spike in excitement and energy, and they needed that because, like we said, they didn't do anything at the trade deadline, or like I said last week, we didn't do anything at the trade deadline, and they had to do something because coming off the West Coast trip with the Dodgers, and I believe it was the Giants. I know it was the Giants, may not have been the Dodgers, but it was ugly. And the offense was just dying and wasn't going anywhere. They had to do something. And Charlie comes in, and he wasn't even there for the first game. So everybody's saying Charlie's working his magic, and when they scored 8 runs, I think it was, game 1, you're out of your minds. Okay, Charlie didn't do anything there. But over the course of the next couple days, they have, obviously, which was the moment of the season thus far, and that is the walk-off grand slam by Bryce Harper to sweep the Chicago Cubs. And what was a heck of a comeback. They were down 5-1 in the ninth, and just, strung together a couple of singles before ultimately getting to Hoskins, and then Harper, and Hoskins got hit by a pitch. So that loaded the bases for Harper, and Harper, being smart and knowing some of the tendencies of the pitcher, decided that he was going to cheat to some inside fastballs. And the first 2 pitches were actually fouled off. Then you saw the pitcher decide to go soft away, gets back to 2-2. Okay, what do we got here? He's either going to go soft away again, but no. I think he's coming back in with the cheese, so I'm going to cheat a little bit to keep the ball fair and really strike this ball. So that's what he did, and it was the call. It was the call of the year. I'm laughing because I just thought about John Kruk's call. Oh my God! Right when it happened, and I was laughing because you're really not supposed to do that in the world of broadcasting. And the radio call by Scott Fransky was strong, and really you thought, this is the moment. This is the time that the team's going to come together. Bryce Harper, your main superstar, has an all-star moment, the moment of the year, a walk-off grand slam. So obviously we're going to continue this. And then right into game 1 for the Padres series, they actually do. They put up another crooked number. I think it was a 6, 7, or 8 spot once again. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, they've finally done it. They've understood now what was happening. They've made some adjustments. Some of the initial adjustments that I did see based on Charlie Manuel and John Maley was just the aggressiveness in the zone. I talked about last time how I didn't think anybody really had a plan of attack when they came up to the plate, and Charlie definitely saw that and discussed this with these guys, because there was a moment there during one of the Cubs games where 4 straight individuals swung at the first pitch, and something good happened every time. Sorry, taking a sip of water there. But they had a leadoff single, then it was a bunt that moved him over. It ended up being a bunt single and another single and then a sac fly. And it was like, wow, look at that. 4 pitches and we got a run, instead of trying to work every at-bat to the 5th, 6th pitch and all of the above that way. It was nice to see them really kind of have an attitude when coming to the plate, a little bit of that swagger and that confidence, because I feel like you truly can't have that swagger if you're going up there knowing that, oh, well, I'm going to take a couple of pitches, we're going to work a deep count. It's going, no. When you mess up, Mr. Pitcher, and you make a mistake, no matter when it is in the count, I'm going to jump all over it and embarrass you. And nobody on the Phillies, I feel like, has that attitude or that killer instinct of theirs. And the number one main culprit right now, I think, of that is Rhys Hoskins. Because Rhys Hoskins, since the All-Star break, has been awful. I mean, it's historically awful. And looking at the notes here I have written down, he's hitting 168 since the All-Star break. So you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, 168, he's normally 260 or above, what the heck's going on? Well, he's got to be getting better. He's got to be breaking out of this. Well, that's not the case at all, because over the last 15 games, he's hitting 083 with an on-base of 262, and then in the last 7 games, he's hitting 048 with an 048 slugging percentage. This means that he literally has, I think, 1 hit, maybe it's 2 if he has enough at-bats, but 1 hit in the last week, and it was a single. Your 3 or 4 hitter, your power hitter, who just 2 years ago was breaking major league records when it comes to home runs and extra base hits, now is going almost an entire month. Well, he is going a month. It's 30 games, and he has a 296 slugging percentage. Ladies and gentlemen, the 9-hole hitter on the worst team in baseball should not have a 296 slugging percentage. People hit above 300 with average, and slugging compounds extra base hits, so doubles, triples, homers. You can have a slugging percentage of 800. Rhys Hoskins has one over 300. He hasn't hit a ball hard or crushed it. He's probably got one or two. That's an exaggeration. But he hasn't hit a ball hard in about a month. And I decided to dive in a little bit and maybe try to figure out what the heck's going on. And one advanced metric really stood out. And then the other one, I kind of fought myself with mentally, and I'll talk through those with you here over the next couple of minutes. And the first one is that Rhys Hoskins, his average exit velocity, so how hard the ball is coming off his bat once he makes contact, has remained pretty much constant, within the same 1 mile an hour throughout the 2.5 years. This is his second full year, and he came up a half year. So half a year, full year, coming up on a full year, it's remained constant. So that's not a problem because he typically hits the ball hard. Now, he's not, in the 90th percentile like we talked about, but he hits the ball hard. The problem with the consistency in his exit velocity is that his launch angle has increased every year. And I know that the craze today is the launch angle. It's what everybody's teaching. It's, what we're trying to get a lot of individuals to move towards. And his launch angle in 17, when he was breaking all these records for home runs, hitting all these doubles, really lighting the world on fire, was 18 degrees. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, what the heck does that mean to me? Not a lot. So just follow me here, but typically between 20 and 30 is where a lot of the home runs are hit. So 18 means you're more of a line drive hitter, harder contact. And as you get higher, obviously more fly balls and such. So as we continue that trend in 2018, it went up to 23 degrees. So again, hitting the ball the same velocity, but now an average of 23 off the bat. And now this year, it's up to 25 and change. So ultimately what's happening is he's hitting the ball higher, but not any harder, and obviously not further, because, science, basic math, this is taking me back here to some high school days, if I could draw you a chart, doing the equations, but he's hitting the ball with the same velocity, and now it's going higher, so there are a lot more fly balls to the outfielders, or pop-ups that previously were home runs, because they had a lower trajectory and therefore traveled a further distance. So that's certainly something to concern yourself with, and you really want to get Rhys back down to around that 20-degree mark, because when you're going doubles in the gaps, hitting the ball hard on the line, 20 degrees, it's going to get out of here if you hit it hard. But when you're averaging 25, meaning that half of them are above that in the 30, 35 range, you're just popping up, and those are automatic outs in the big leagues. So that was the one that stood out as one of the main concerns. And this next one was more along the lines of, okay, how do we discuss this? Because the statistics tell you one thing, and yet your eyes tell you another. And this is where I think Charlie Manuel is going to make his money, because when you look at Rhys Hoskins, and he has become a strictly pull hitter. The guy's pulling everything right now. And you can see it live. Outside fastballs, outside breaking balls. He's looking to pull everything to left field. And as you dive into the advanced metrics, now, yes, it's because of the amount of balls that he's pulling, but he's hitting 455 when he pulls the baseball. When it goes to center, he's only hitting 253, and when he goes to right field, he's hitting 143. Now, the problem with those stats is I think Rhys Hoskins is at his best when he's using the entire field pretty much over to right center. Not straight away right, but right center and over is when he's at his best. And the numbers, and John Maley's probably telling him, listen, when you pull it, you're hitting almost 500. So try to pull every baseball you can, because the stats are telling us that that's when you've had most of your success, not when you go to center field. But the eye test and the baseball, quote unquote baseball guys like Charlie Manuel will just see that he is totally in a funk right now, and it's because he's pulling out, he's pulling off, everything's trying to go to left. You got to work up the middle. Now, he hit a ball to the wall in the 9th inning, or Sunday, or 8th inning, I think it was actually. That was technically a robbed home run, but it was a short fence, so the guy was really standing there. But for the first time to see him drive a ball to center field was really exciting for Rhys, and I think we're getting close to unlocking that. And the Phillies aren't going to make any sort of run at all without a hot Rhys Hoskins, or at least an average Rhys Hoskins, because this guy has been truly, truly bad. Like, not even average, but bad. So hopefully Charlie can get him out of the funk. If there's one person to do it, I think it's Charlie. So we'll have to stay tuned here over the next couple weeks to see if he gets a little more time, if things will bounce back. But the one last thing, I took another sip there because I wanted to gather my thoughts before these last 3 to 4 minutes here in discussing Gabe Kapler once again with you guys out there, because Gabe's post-game press conferences are getting very, very tough to watch. And I'm a gentleman who likes to give the manager or the coach the benefit of the doubt. I'm not one of those guys that the moment the team stinks, we got to get rid of them, or, like Brett Brown was the reason we didn't win in the playoffs last year, and things along those lines. So I like to give them as much much rope as possible, since I couldn't spit out that other word there. But, when he comes out and makes comments in the post-game press conference, and I'm pulling up my phone here because I want to make sure I read it right as to not misquote Mr. Kapler. But this came after the 9th inning against the Padres, when their all-star closer struck out the side to end the game in what was a game that the Phillies needed to win. Kapler came out afterwards and said, "Obviously frustrating to lose today's baseball game. Really proud of the grind in today's at-bats. Saw 110 pitches off their starter. Saw 27 pitches with 3 outs in the 9th inning. I know sometimes these types of games can be frustrating, but I'm really proud of the way these guys fought today." Oh my goodness. Gabe Kapler is giving away participation trophies. He doesn't care about the outcome at all, because I watched that 9th inning and got so frustrated and angry that the Phillies couldn't even put a ball in play against this all-star closer. How are you going to go about scoring a run when you can't even put a ball in play? It was an embarrassing display of fight from our guys. Now, yes, granted, none of them are trying to get out. As a player, former player, I understand that. However, this is a results-oriented sport, okay? You're not coming back into the dugout after a 10-pitch strikeout going, "It's okay, guys. I saw 10 pitches, and I tried really hard. It doesn't matter that I completely failed at my objective." That's not how it works. This isn't Little League. Not everybody gets a trophy, Gabe. And I understand you don't have to come out and single out any individual during that inning that we need better from him or her. But to just come out and strictly say that you're proud of the way the guys fought today discredits everything you ever say. Like, you're done. You are shut off, Gabe. It's just, how can we even believe in this team a little bit when we think, based on what you're telling us, they're coming back into the dugout after losing the most important game of the year, laying an egg, and you're going to tell them you're proud of the way they fought today? Thanks, Dad. I appreciate it. Get out of here, man. You're not their dad. You're their coach. You're supposed to be holding them accountable. We need to be better. It's that simple. That's all you have to do. Again, you don't have to call anybody out. Just say, hey, the 9th inning, we didn't even put a ball in play. Obviously, not good enough. Was it that hard? Was that hard, Dylan, my producer here? I mean, it's not that hard. You don't have to, again, like, he's just anti any sort of conflict and confrontation, and maybe he's doing it behind closed doors, but we don't know about it. So therefore, us as fans, in the masses, assume it's not happening. You need to let us know it's happening, and not that you're happy that they fought and failed miserably. Oh my God, that one was one of the last straws for me. And like I said, I try to be optimistic, but oh, did he have me fired up walking around the house Sunday afternoon. So I apologize there, everybody, for, talking your ear off here in these last 20 seconds about Gabe, but I appreciate it, as you guys are kind of a little bit like therapy for me. I can explain my thoughts and get things off my chest. But we'll come back here on the other side talking NFL, talking a little bit of national news. That wraps up Phillies talk. Hopefully next week it'll be a little more positive and we can get something going. So thanks for sticking with us, and I'll see you soon. So however much we have left, was it 13 or 12 or... I would say miss a minute short. Go 13 then, just in case I spill over like that again for a second or two. Yeah, that way if I go over for another 10 seconds or whatever, not a big deal. Welcome back, everybody, to Too Close to Call, the sports talk radio show here at USALA Media and USALA Radio. I appreciate you guys tuning in today. If you're just joining us here at about 1:45 on a beautiful Tuesday afternoon, hopefully you're enjoying your week thus far. And if you've been with us for the 45 minutes previously, thank you so much once again for tuning in. I do appreciate it, and hopefully I've brought some value and you learned something about the Eagles and Phillies there in those first couple segments. But do me a favor, once again, since I tend to forget it at the end once I get rolling here, but go to Instagram, Facebook, check us out, Too Close to Call, the number 2 both times, Too Close to Call Cast on iTunes Radio. All of these shows are posted on www.usalamedia.com. If you go to the podcast, under the menu selection at the top, you can find all the episodes, as well as if you have an iPhone, we're on iTunes or the podcast app. It's on Google Play, Spotify, and I'll take these episodes and recordings and post them there in a day or two, so you guys can get them on demand. Or as you're aware, it'll replay on the weekends coming up here from 8 to 9 in the morning on both days. So once again, follow us, comment, subscribe, let us know how we're doing, interact with us so we can bring you guys the content you want to hear. Certainly open for suggestions, topics, whatever you guys want to hear about is what I want to talk about. So anything sports is on the table, we'll discuss it from there. But these last 10 to 12 minutes, I'm going to do about 5, 6, 7, maybe a little bit more on the NFL Week 2 preseason, and then I'm going to wrap up with a little bit of news and information for you guys leading into next week's episode and show for you guys. So NFL Week 2 in the preseason, it was preseason football. So I went through and I looked at the box scores of some games, read a few recaps, really kind of just took a bullet point list of the hot topics that are going on around the league, just to keep all of you updated as we get into our fantasy football drafts. There's some new injuries to think about, some new contract situations to discuss, and things along those lines. But let's see here. First and foremost, the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, actually looking good. I know a lot of people writing him off after a rookie year or a second year that wasn't great, but the addition of Cole Beasley has been very impressive for Buffalo through 2 games. So if you guys are out there in PPR leagues and really looking for somebody who may fall down a few rounds, look for Beasley, because he got paid in Buffalo, and when he got paid, a lot of people were like, oh, that's way too much money for him. But through 2 games, it certainly seems like that guy's going to catch at least 100 balls from Josh Allen. And, he's done some good things when it comes to pass protection and recognizing blitzes here in the preseason thus far that he hadn't done in the past. So it's a nice growth for him. But bouncing around with really no rhyme or reason, the Cleveland Browns, talking quarterback position, and not talking Baker Mayfield. So their backup quarterback, Garrett Gilbert. If you've heard that name, it was because he was recently in the AAF, the American Alliance Football. No, that's not right. I don't even know what it was. But it doesn't matter. It is now debunked. It lasted 2 months. But that guy was going to be the MVP of the league, if you followed it all, which I did, because, I was playing fantasy football, AAF fantasy football, so some say it's a problem, but I had some fun doing it. And he was going to be the MVP, so keep an eye out on him in Cleveland. And obviously Baker's the guy, but I think the guy's going to make a team. And the AAF, if they get jobs for 5, 7, 10 guys, that's what they were looking for. So Cleveland may have 2 quarterbacks. quarterbacks when they've had none for 20 years or whatever it is with that jersey that the one guy has with 18 different names on it. But let's see. The quarterback position, we'll stay there next to Dallas Cowboys. They played in Hawaii. The LA Rams. Not a bad gig there in the preseason. Dallas obviously has their training camp. They're one of the still remote teams that trains in California. It's not Los Angeles, but it's California. So them in LA, it did make sense. 6 hours out to Hawaii, trying to grow the brand, the NFL brand, get out there to the islands, give them a game outside of the Pro Bowl that's played out there every year. But Dak Prescott hasn't missed a pass in 2 drives. So he's played 1 drive in each preseason game and doesn't have an incompletion under his belt yet. So the guy who wants $40 million hasn't affected his play. If anything, he's kind of showing him why you got to pay me $40 million. But Dallas continues to be a little bit of a circus because they have that going on. And then Jerry Jones came out and said Zeke who, after I forget the running back's name off the top of my head, who had a great day, but he was like, yeah, Zeke who, we don't need Zeke, and everybody laughed, and of course the writers were all laughing because they want to get more answers from Jerry and they're kind of sucking up. But apparently Zeke did not take too kindly to what was going on there and is a little bit upset, and I mean, who cares? Who cares? Oh, he made me angry. What is this, the 4th grade? What are we doing? She said, like, come on guys, sit down, figure it out, figure out if you're going to hash it out. If not, go your separate ways. Let's be adults. Let's try to put this together. But as an Eagles fan, loving it. Loving every minute of what's going on down in Big D, because some people were saying they're their top competition in the NFC, certainly the NFC East, but NFC as a whole as well, and to kind of see the dysfunction that's going on, and maybe that will roll into regular season play. So loving that as a Birds fan. But bouncing around, the New Orleans Saints, Taysom Hill, backup quarterback who you've seen get on the field with Drew Brees. They run a little bit of that combo. Dual quarterback. Oh my God, he could throw it, but he's still a house and runs into a big guy. But he had a nice game. So at the quarterback position, people are concerned he may not be able to throw the ball extremely well, but it was a positive, and that was a good sign, because Teddy Bridgewater, after a good week 1, really struggled in week 2. That was something that jumped off the page. I know I brought his name up again, so I wanted to circle back and see how he was doing. And it did not go well. And he wasn't the only backup quarterback in that division where it didn't go well. Both guys for Carolina, the Panthers, Will Greer and Kyle Allen. Now, Will Greer I knew out of West Virginia, but I hadn't heard of Kyle Allen. And apparently neither of them did very well, and you don't need to hear about them. So, but I just wanted to drop that information off, because Cam Newton is coming off a shoulder surgery, which really hindered their year last year, because they started, I think it was 6-2, and then went 1-7, 7-9. That sounds about right. Coming down the stretch, which led to a surgery where he may not be healthy still. Coming off of that, so a lot to deal with there in Carolina and see what's going on. But let's see here. Looking at my notes, New York Football Giants. Eli Manning says, "Not so fast, Mr. Rookie." 4 for 4 with a touchdown pass on the only drive he led. So he said, I still got it, my man. I could sling it out here. Don't be coming for the job just yet. But Daniel Jones was impressive once again. 11 of 14, 161 yards with a touchdown. Did have a couple of fumbles. That's going to come with, ball security, understanding that these NFL guys are taught to go for the football and not specifically the tackle, specifically at the quarterback position, because anytime you touch that guy, it seems like it's a flag. So they're really, really being taught to go after that arm and that football, and that's something that he's going to have to watch out for. But it does seem like Eli Manning's going to be the guy, at least early in the year, that's going to, have another year of starts under his belt there. So wrapping up the NFL talk, New York Jets, Sam Darnold looking strong. He's been good. The Oakland Raiders defense, Hard Knocks, been super impressive. The offense, Antonio Brown, obviously still coming together. We got that helmet grievance. Oh, hey, look at that. With new week, new helmet grievance for Antonio Brown. So I didn't even want to get into that this week with you guys. Talked enough about it last week. Apparently he found a helmet that was made for a movie. It was within the last 10 years, but made for a film, and he thinks it's going to pass NFL inspection when the last one didn't. So I don't know what the heck he's doing, but whatever. I don't have the time to get into that right now before 2 o'clock. So NFL, last one, Arizona Cardinals, Kyler Murray struggles, and apparently we have a little bit of an issue with his clapping. He's being called for false starts. at the college level, they go on the clap, they don't even bark out the cadence. Well, they do a big suggestive, and then they don't clap. They come to like an inch away. It's like trying to get them to go off sides, and it's baloney. It really is. It's college stuff. Shouldn't be at the NFL level. I'm glad he's getting flagged for it, because just knock that stuff off, kid. Play the game. If you're going to win, you're going to win. If not, we don't need any of these shenanigans or gimmicks here. But that's it for the NFL talk. Give me a second here to take a quick sip of water. But for these last 4 minutes or so, I did want to talk with you guys about next week's episode, because we have a special episode coming for you guys. I myself will be on vacation with the family. I have a wedding to attend to in Greater Charleston, so we'll be gone for the week, so we will not be live next week. But we do have something even better for you guys. Just this past weekend, I was down in the Baltimore area. I was interviewing a buddy of mine who is a major league pitcher for the Houston Astros. His name is Ryan Presley. And the reason this is a great interview for you guys is because within the past year, Ryan made the All-Star team, as well as set a major league record with 40 straight scoreless relief appearances. Unbelievable. He set a major league record. A buddy of mine I grew up playing with. It's crazy to think about. So we talked about that. We talked about kind of the day-to-day struggles that come with having a scoreless streak over 40 innings over 2 seasons, and the pressure of trying to continue to perform while you're going to break a major league record. Like I said, not only an Astros record, but a major league record. He was an All-Star this year. He got traded last year from the Minnesota Twins to the Houston Astros. Excuse me. So pitched in postseason baseball last year in Fenway, and talks about that, talks about the goal this year for the Houston Astros to continue to strive for that championship. They won 2 years ago and have been extremely close since. Signed an extension with Houston, so he's going to be there the next couple of years with the rest of those guys. But I just wanted to give a brief introduction, let you guys know once again kind of what's coming down the road here. But Ryan and I sat down. It's about 45 minutes. We talked about all of his big league experience, got behind the scenes once again. So it's not that straight media stuff that you hear from ESPN on, what's it like to get traded, or how did that go about. I asked him what it's like to get traded, but we find out what it's like to get a phone call at 12:30 in the morning and then have to be in Houston by the next day when your girlfriend, wife, fiance doesn't have the luxury of being put on that plane, so then has to go back to Minnesota where they have dogs at the apartment, so they have dogs that nobody thinks about, and then they have to get from Minnesota down to Houston, and while they're doing that, she has to find them a place to live because this is their new home moving forward. And while he's going from Houston, then he flew out to LA, and then he was somewhere else with them, and just the chaos and the human aspect of sports that a lot of people really don't dive into and understand. And yes, these guys get paid a lot of money, and they're doing a dream job that we all had one day dreamt of kind of fulfilling. But when you actually get here as an adult and a couple of individuals who are in that life, there's things behind the scenes that really need to be discussed. And in a world of 2019 where mental health and being transparent and everything that's going on, it's a fantastic interview and a fantastic 45 minutes. So just wanted to thank Ryan once again. We'll be playing that for you guys next Tuesday's episode while I'm on vacation. But that's it for this week's episode. Once again, I appreciate you guys listening in here. USALA Radio and USALA Media. We're on Facebook, Instagram. I myself, Kevin Mahalik. My tag is KMiho20. That's KMIHO, the number 2 and the number 0. That's on Instagram. And then the show itself, 2Close2Call cast, the number 2. Both times on Instagram. And like I mentioned, iPhone, get to the podcast, check it out, search it. There's additional episodes there that we do outside of just this weekly episode, but all of it will be posted there, as well as Spotify if you're an Android guy or a Google guy. So we don't discriminate with where you're listening to us, but do us a favor out there, follow us, subscribe. Once again, thanks for tuning in to me here, August 20th, coming up on 2 o'clock. This was Too Close to Call at USALA Radio. Have yourself a great week. Peace. All right. There we go.
Yeah, it's a good show.
Yeah, so like I was saying there,